Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the coziest scuba matching set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Vernomatic Productions.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy holidays, Memorial Day weekend 2023. Tonight, we got a crossover episode with our friends from the Talk Louder podcast, Metal Dave Glessner and Jason McMaster. We're tackling the subject Metallica. With a brand new CD and a huge stadium tour, is the end closer than we think? We're going to tackle those subjects and talk about the hugeness that is Metallica. But let's remember what this weekend is really about. Those that have served for our country, lost their lives, have long-term disabilities, and families affected by the gruesome reality of war. So enjoy this episode. If you see a veteran, tip your hat, shake their hand. You know, just be cool to your fellow citizens. That's what this is all about. So let's get into this. Another special edition of Rock and Roll Detention. I'm the Vernomatic. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Ah, look. You're back in detention.
Got it.
But this time, you won't be throwing pencils up into the ceiling tiles the entire time.
Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horn.
Your proctors expect you to be on your worst behavior as they give you remedial instruction in the history of hard rock and metal.
You going to school?
Hey, settle down. Here's Vernomatic and Metal Walt with your Rock and Roll Detention, a proud member of the Pantheon podcast team.
As we keep our promise of a Rock and Roll Detention episode, today we have the guys from the Talk Louder podcast here, and the subject today, we're talking louder about the current state of Metallica, the release of 72 Seasons, the type of tour they're doing, and is the end of Metallica closer than we think? From the Talk Louder podcast, let's welcome Jason McMaster and Metal Dave Glessner. Hey guys, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good.
We're doing well. As always, like to reintroduce my co-host, Metal Walt from New Jersey.
What's up, guys? Nice to see you again.
Hey, Walt.
Hanging here in Jersey, right in the middle.
It's where the action is.
So today, May 9th, 2023, let's rewind to May 9th, 1989. We had a release of Dangerous Toys' debut album.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
That's right. Now, there you go. Look at this bad boy.
That's a beauty, isn't it?
Jason McMaster, get any reflections on this album as the lead singer of the band? Does it seem like 35 years ago or what, 36 or whatever?
Well, there was a bit of a circle jerk texting going on with me and my bandmates that we all still get along and we're all still in the band. So that's great. I think it was Scott that initiated it. He said, "Happy 34th anniversary, fellas." And I think it was Mike, bassist Mike Watson, chimed in. He goes, "Feels like it was yesterday." So I don't know about that, but I like his positive attitude on aging. I think that the record holds up. There's a lot of fanfare on social media currently all day long today, and people just chiming in, and it's all very, very positive. So that's fantastic.
Well, it had a lot of great material on that. The radio hit "Sportin' a Woody" that came out of nowhere. The songs like "Bones in the Gutter," "Teasin' and Pleasin'," that deep cut "Outlaw." That's all good stuff. It's the soundtrack of our youth. So again, happy birthday, Dangerous Toys, and congratulations.
That photo that you guys are looking at on the back of that Dangerous Toys album cover, when we were at Rockin' Pod Expo in Nashville, Tennessee, the photographer Mark Weiss was there, and he was on our show. And he actually took that photo, so we had a great time reminiscing about that day, that photo shoot. So it was great getting his story on the image you see there, and of course the front cover is classic. So happy 34th, Jason and the guys from Dangerous Toys. It's a great record, and it does still hold up. And my vote for my favorite song is "Queen of the Nile."
That's a good one.
Yeah, that album went gold, guys. That album was certified gold, and Jason was kind enough to get me a framed gold copy of it. It's hanging out in my living room. And I think Jason is my only friend that has a gold album out. I think. I could be wrong there.
That's awesome.
But it's hanging proudly in my living room.
Jason, was this one also re-released with like a bonus disc or something? Some extra material on that?
No.
Not that he's aware.
If it did, it was a bootleg, and it was someone just trying. It was a sound-alike band. I want to say, God, SPV, I think, put out a double album of the debut and the sophomore, Hellacious Acres, in a gatefold. And it came. Someone in Europe put it together, and extensive liner notes and such. And somebody really cool did the liner notes. I can't remember the cat's name. English writer, worked for Kerrang and Sounds and all that. Can't think of his name.
Malcolm? Malcolm Dome.
Might have been Malcolm Dome, yeah. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, it was someone like that. And anyway, it was cool. I think it was a limited issue. I had to buy my own copy because I just thought it was really interesting that, you're holding it in your hand with it folded. You got the debut and you turn it over and it's the front cover of Hellacious Acres, and you open it up and it's got it's the respective back covers of each, but it's all one piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of this fan stuff is better than the stuff that's released. It's great stuff. As an artist, you must be like, hey, all right.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, guys, we're here to talk about Metallica in 2023, right? We're not gonna break down like everybody else does and do a track by track review of the album. Although, let's talk a little bit about the album. But I think what we wanted to talk about here is, what is the message these guys are giving us directly, or maybe even subtly? I think some of us think that maybe they're branding themselves for the beginning of the end. And, in a way, or are they subtly hinting about a career wind down? So, Dave, what have you been reading any of these articles or interviews with the band? What's your impression on what they're trying to tell us now in 23?
I don't know that they're trying to tell us anything, to be perfectly honest. I feel like you're going to hear me say this a lot today. And I think a lot of the driving factors behind what Metallica does is simply because they can. And so, I look at this album and I've listened to it a couple times. It's a good album. I don't know that it's an essential album, but that's not a knock on Metallica either. They're well into the game. They can do whatever they want at this point in their career. And as far as reading any message into it, as far as, is this the beginning of the end? Are they trying to tell us something? I don't think that far into it, and I'm not sure the band does either. I mean, I feel like you might be overanalyzing it if you're looking for some sort of meaning, and I could be wrong, but I think Metallica does what they do in the past 20 years or more just simply because they can. They're in a very elite an often unprecedented class of bands that has been able to sustain a decades-long career of filling football stadiums. And that's just, it's crazy. So did they think it was marketing genius to put out an album with Lou Reed? Did they think it was, did they really think that the snare drum on Saint Anger was the best it could be? I just think they do what they want to do because they can, and more power to them.
Who would you put in that group?
I would argue, if you're talking hard rock and heavy metal, I would say that, Iron Maiden might be in that class of bands. And honestly, maybe no one else. You could talk about the Aerosmiths, and the AC/DC might be in there. Mm-hmm. You could say Aerosmith, AC/DC, Kiss is still going, but can they play football stadiums all around the world? They might play them. Do they sell them out? I guess not.
You're throwing the Rolling Stones. It's a Rolling Stones story.
Exactly. That's where the
Metallica is now going on, 45 and 50 years. Just like you can say that easily about Aerosmith, of course, and Rolling Stones is where I'm going with it.
Now, I'm with you. I think they are in such an elite class.
The Rolling Stones have been able to do whatever the hell they want forever. So I think that Metallica has reached that status, Led Zeppelin status, but Led Zeppelin broke up when the getting was good and the Rolling Stones didn't, and they just continued, and they've been a brand, for 35, 40 years. They've been a brand almost the whole time. Once they, the 80s came around, they turned into a brand for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with Jason. I think Metallica is in that class, in that rare air where there's the Rolling Stones and maybe no one else. Maybe Iron Maiden right there at their heels. But other than that, if you're talking hard rock and heavy metal, I don't think there's another band in their class.
And I think too, though, it's the mystique around the branding, right? Like these other bands do, right? They're not, let's be honest, they're not as accessible as they were, right? You're not seeing them out doing 2, 3, 4 legs around the States for 2 or 3 year periods, right? You're lucky. Like, look where we are, right?
Just like the Stones. They don't
pick a city. You guys are in the Midwest or South. I'm up in the Northeast. If you don't catch them in Giant Stadium in August, you're not going to see them again unless you travel somewhere for a destination. That keeps the novelty around, the mystique.
And I would argue again, they do that because they can. Let's be honest, even though they're touring in the greatest of comfort, do guys their age really want to live on a bus and out of a hotel? I mean, or would you just as soon, if you're James Hetfield, you go live on your ranch out in Marin County or whatever and enjoy the great outdoors?
Colorado.
Or is he in Colorado now?
He's been wherever in Colorado
he is,
a long time.
Wherever he is, he's got a great deal of peace and quiet, I'm sure. And so, do you want to tour every 2 or 3 years, or do you want to take 5, 6, 7 years off and do this at your leisure? And I think, again, they do it because they can. They do it at their leisure, and I think it makes it exciting for the band, and it certainly builds anticipation with the audience, which is why you have this massive tour that's coming out, and they can do multiple dates and they'll sell the tickets,
We're all big Metallica fans, but I'm a big Lars fan, and I listen to what he has to say. It all started with the Saint Anger era. They started the rule 2 weeks the most on the road, and then they're off for 2 weeks. And the reason I started thinking that, hey, they're planting these seeds is just like Walt said, the shrinking of the tour the last few years. Now, about 10 years ago, they said they don't play more than 50 dates a year. And then Lars was saying, dropping these hints, we got about another 10 years in this. And it just made me start thinking, look at this new tour. They're doing no repeat weekends. And it's almost like you have to go see them. They're not coming to your town anymore. It's just another way of Metallica, like you said, Dave, doing whatever the hell they want. But they always break ground. They always do it their way. They always do it's like innovative. Did you guys happen to see the first no repeat weekend, the Amsterdam reviews and the set lists? 32 different songs.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that?
Well, I think you bring up a good point. They do kind of do whatever they want, but you're right in the sense that they're also smart enough to realize they have to market it with a twist, because even if they only did this every 5 years and it was the same thing over and over every 5 years, ticket prices are doing nothing but getting more expensive. So you kind of do have to add a twist to it. And I think the no repeat thing, I think the alternating opening acts thing is sort of this incentive to make you go, okay, maybe I did see the last tour however many years ago it was, but they're doing something new and different this time. It makes it exciting again. It makes you interested in going. And I think, again, it makes it interesting for the band. It's probably a lot of work to rehearse and have all those songs ready to go. But you're Metallica. You rent out the nicest rehearsal space. You work at it for 6 months or whatever, and you go knock it out, Yeah,
I'm going to interrupt. I agree wholeheartedly with what David's doing, but this is where the nerd in me comes in. So they own like 5-city block, I don't know how big it is, warehouses, and that's where they live and rehearse and record their records and write songs with Greg Fiddleman, and that's an important part of their sanity. Yeah. The way that they're doing everything that we are all chiming in here as to why, and then there's some kind of answer from some of us in this room today, is for health reasons, because they've already saturated, they've already conquered. They own their own everything. They own their own studio. They own everything. They own the radio stations. They own the venues. Their songs are being played on radio stations that I have a weird feeling. Don't quote me on this. I don't have this information. I don't have any kind of direct, bat phone to HQ. But I'll tell you this: they own everything. They don't have to work their songs at radio. They own the fucking radio. So, mic drop.
Jason, the one thing you didn't mention in that, they also own their own record-making plant.
Yes, they do.
They own everything. They have it's self-sufficient. I mean, they're their own label. Yeah. They've been a brand for a long time now. So when you are a brand and you make, I'm not making fun of them by saying this, when you literally make all the money, you have all the money because there's no middleman. They've paid off every middleman. They own all their masters. It's the smartest thing to do when the idea is cottage industry. So they're a perfect machine that has to stay healthy or they can't, or it's over. So I think that having these leisures keeps them sane. I think that James being forthcoming and wearing his heart on his sleeve about his sobriety, about his divorce, about just all of the shit that is real that everyone else deals with, he's got to deal with because, and this is just for, so I don't talk for an hour because he's fucking James Hetfield.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're right, Jason. It's perfect in this whole aura about them. They set themselves up subtly where they're working it for themselves, right? They got the pauses in between shows. They don't have to burn themselves out. Even think about a luxury of a day off in between a show in New York City or Chicago, right? And I always say I took a picture of this artwork, right? Because I like the CD, I bought it. But you know what? Look at the guys. Look at the forced images here, right? But this is these guys in 2023. You know what? Yeah, it's a little bit of acting here, but they look tired. They worn out. It shows a band that's been around for 40 something years. Right there. Look at James. He's looking us in the eyes.
Jason and I were actually just talking about this the other day, and we were talking specifically about these photos. And, again, I think that, Jason kept using the phrase, they're not trying to hide anything, and I'll let him chime in here. But I love the fact that you can see every little scar and pit in their face. You can see every little blemish. You can see every little gray whisker. There's a great level of detail here, and I like that it's black and white. And again, they are not afraid to just be themselves and show who they are. They're not 25 years old anymore. Right. The whole world knows it, and they might as well own it, and they do. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and even their charitable things, like, certain things that come up through the years, right? They're expanding their charities, the mental health aspect. And I think I just saw one recently. I think they're also embracing the whole having a sign language interpreter coming at the shows now too, which is a trend you're starting to see. So I think this is their way of almost giving back now to the community. Maybe as a friend of mine, Vinyl Vince from New Jersey said, is it their guilt that's coming out years later of all the partying years that now they're saying we're going to be a little more mature, responsible because we've worn this on our sleeve. We've owned it. We've been to hell and back. And now it's our time to acknowledge and put it out there that we are real people.
Yeah. I think, again, when you achieve what they've achieved, I mean, there's money just spilling out of their ears when they walk down the streets. Why not do something good with it? Why not contribute to some charities or whatever? They've done a really great job with the whole food bank thing in the cities where they tour. I can't remember exactly what their organization is called. But you see that at the end of the tours or when they leave a city, they bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars in food donations that go to homeless shelters and food banks and things like that. And, I think, these guys are metalheads at the root of it all. They came up, through in heavy metal circles. I'm not saying that they necessarily came up the hard way. I know Lars had a pretty decent life. James might have been, had things a little tougher. But my point is, when you're a heavy metal kid in high school, your circle of friends, there's probably some people that had a rough go in life. You're exposed to that if you're in that realm of people. And I think it's really cool that if you ever get to a position to do some good with it, that you do it. I mean, it's no skin off their backs. Come on, let's face it. So I applaud them for it.
Dave, it's all within my hands foundation.
There you go.
Correct.
All last tour on Death Magnetic and Hardwired, that whole tour, you always see these, it's like a golf tournament. They have the big checks and they're donating it to the city that they're in, $70,000, $80,000. And they're good people. They really are. And, well, go back on what you were saying. I don't think they're trying to, any penance for past sins. James has been battling this for 25 years, the sobriety. He's been battling the addiction his whole life. And Kirk just recently came out and said that he's been sober 9 years.
Yeah.
And without the fanfare. And even Lars, I was watching something the other night. He says he really doesn't drink anymore. It's, maybe once a month. Now he has to do 2 hours of the Peloton every day just to get to the point of where he was before. And Rob, I think it's just in his genes. The guy looks great, and these guys are like close to 60. But
we did our history of heavy metal series 1993 last week, guys, and we pulled out the Live Binge and Purge box set, and we were talking about that. And that's not that long ago, 30 years ago. But you think about how groundbreaking that packaging and the concept was at that time, right? Multiple CDs, tracks from Mexico City, VHS tapes from a couple of different cities around the U.S., but just even the title, like you wouldn't get away with that in 2023. And I don't think the band would be comfortable naming something like that anymore, right? So it just tells you sort of their growth and that who they are now at 60-year-old something guys.
That's a great point, I think.
Yeah. I buy that. I mean, at the end of the day, they're human beings and they're mature, they're grown middle-aged men at this point. I mean, all of us have to come to terms with that at some point. And at least if you're smart, but I agree. I mean, we don't have to look too far back into the past to see things that would just make us cringe today, and some of that is society or the society that surrounds us. And some of it is in between our own ears. We're just grown men with a broader sense of what's acceptable, not acceptable. that sort of thing.
The Binge and Purge, the Day in a Life of, and the Binge and Purge, and those projects that they did, those were massive undertakings because of the years of touring they did. All right, we're going on tour for 3 years or something crazy like that. Yeah. So, recording a few of the concerts and throwing some CDs and some VHS tapes, and now it's on DVD, of course, and now it's all digital. You can buy, I'm sure, from their websites and such. It was the undertaking because they were still saying fuck it back then. I can see Lars coming in going, all right, you guys ready? We're going on tour forever.
Yeah.
All the guys were like, fuck it, let's go. Hand me the bottle. I don't ever want to say Metallica is tired. I think the haters would say that. I would never say that. I'm too big of a fan and have a lot of respect for all of them. Past and present, Jason, even Dave Mustaine. It's a small club. The members who have past and current, it's a small club, still a very small club. And just where Metallica has been invited by the world to just be Metallica, that's where they are now on this new record. I don't really know what to think as I stare at this black and yellow striper color theme here. But it doesn't really, thank you. It doesn't really bother me, but it's the first thing I think of because I'm just a rock nerd. But I don't really understand. I'm just being completely straight with you guys. If I look at the song titles, I don't know if I've heard. Yeah, I've heard Screaming Suicide. I've heard Lux Eterna. And I've heard If Darkness Had a Sun. And honestly, fellas, that's it. That's all. Those are the only tunes I've heard off this record. So if you need me to quietly leave the room, I will. But just being straight with you.
I would have liked to have been in the meeting where they were deciding on the color scheme for the artwork, because definitely jumps out at you, and you're not going to lose it. But
striving to do something different has been happening with these guys for a long time now. And
right. I go back again to they do it because they can. And I listened to the record, and if you go back to that track listing, I thought it started off pretty strong. I like the first 3 songs. The title track may be my favorite, and then. Shadows Follow, Screaming Suicide, all good stuff. Then I get a little lost. I like Lux Eterna. I like Chasing Light.
That's a great one.
Room of Mirrors is a great one. So to me, it's like it's kind of a mix of sort of their earlier thrash stuff mixed in with a lot of kind of what I hear echoes of like the Black Album, where they kind of got away from being thrash all the time and started mixing in just some heavy, hard rock, heavy metal, if you will, but not every song is thrashing. And so I think they mixed it up well, and they're having some fun with it because the thrashing stuff is still pretty thrashing. I'll say that. 72 Seasons and Room of Mirrors, there's some good stuff in there.
There's a lot of good stuff on there, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with Hardwired, but I've dissected this. This has been in my CD player in my truck for 3 weeks. And the only thing I could tell you, Jason, if you haven't listened to it yet, and Dave, you've listened to it a couple times, just keep listening to it continuously, and you will start, oh, that's a riff. Oh, and then you start hearing stuff like, hey, that's like Load stuff. Hey, that's something from Magnetic. And that's part of my thinking about this may be their last full-length album. And it covers their entire chapter of their career, because now you're starting to have the first 4. And then the next 4 with the Black and the Loads. And now you got 3 in the last chapter with Magnetic and Hardwired and now 72 Seasons. in this narrative of the band not, putting out Master of Puppets 2. Well, unfortunately, that band ended with the passing of Cliff. There is no ifs, ands, or buts.
That's fair.
Yeah,
there's nothing it could have done.
And they're grown men again, and like Jason said earlier, they probably have more to say these days, and some of what they want to say doesn't necessarily align itself to this speedy, thrashy, aggressive, 100 miles an hour all the time kind of stuff. John, what you're talking about, sort of, you hear bits and pieces of various stages of their career, and I think that's a reflection of the guys just growing musically. They kind of stepped out of that thrash zone a while back, and they kind of dip a toe back into it every once in a while. But they've experimented with a lot of different sounds over the years. And if you're, 60 some years old, maybe what you have to say isn't said with speed and aggression anymore. Maybe the message sounds better with something more plodding or something a little more atmospheric or whatever. So I think the whole thing to me is just a natural progression of maturation. And to me, that's just a natural part of living. They just happen to be artists that produce a product that sells a bazillion copies right out of the gate every time.
I got to say something. To me, the concept of 72 seasons, I went, well, what the hell does that mean? And then when they explain it, you're like, now all of a sudden I'm fascinated about it, like a subject matter. Wait, your first 18 years of your life dictate who you are. The 4 seasons of growing up, and then you think about every family, we're all fucked up, we all have problems, and right, you go, holy shit, and I got an 18-year-old son, and I'm like, man, I should let him play this and let him think about the hards, the ups and the downs that James is expressing here. So I think, like, from a conceptual product, this is like a mature thing that you could give it to somebody. I thought of this often. You can give this to somebody that maybe is going through substance abuse issues or mental health, and you could almost say, put yourself in the shoes of this, and maybe you can relate to this. A little fact check, Jason. I was checking something else here. In the CD booklet, there are some additional pictures that are not visible maybe here. There's the burnt guitar, the burnt drums, and it appears to be a pile of burnt LPs. And a pair of burnt sunglasses, which I think Kirk used to wear sunglasses all the time. So more analogies to them as people, right? And the album clocks in at 72 minutes. Don't know if you saw that one.
Ah, I did not see that.
Yes, if you pop it in your CD player like I have, it comes in at 72 minutes and 15 seconds.
Clever.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I think, I hate to destroy anybody's theory or whatever, and I think it all makes great discussion. But I'd be really surprised if we were able to talk to the guys in the band and find out there's as much into it as some people might be reading into this. I again think this is a collection of songs made by middle-aged men, past middle age, who are comfortable in their skin and they're doing what they want to do. And I think they're smart guys, so of course there's going to be some message maybe in the lyrics, but I don't know that there's any hidden meanings. I don't know that it's necessarily an attempt at therapy. I could be wrong, but I think this is just art for the sake of art, but it's coming from the point of view of guys who are in their 60s and they've seen it all, done it all, and they're seasoned musicians at this point.
Jason, I want to ask you something as a musician. When someone mentions Metallica, what is the industry's opinion of them? Jason Newsted just recently came out and said that, listen, everyone gives Lars shit that he can't do fills like Dave Lombardo or this or that. He is so far above and beyond what his contribution that made Metallica where they are that you just don't get it.
I think that people who are enamored by Metallica and have where, Metallica speaks to them, because Metallica speaks to me, even as a brand, I feel like where they've taken this is monolithic. I can't, no one can disagree with that. But to ask your question, just people who are musicians in bands, they're just regular people with the same problems. But I think that once you're a fan, you are able to stay a fan. So people in the industry can talk good or bad. It doesn't mean that they're up on 72 seasons or even the last 3 records. That would be me. I honestly, I call myself a fan, but even Death Magnetic, I heard it and I was like, that's great, but I don't own it. When I listen to Metallica, I'm probably going to listen to something that it's like comfort food, right? So I'll go to probably Master, right? Just like everybody else, we'll go to Master. If it's Anthrax, it's Among the Living. It's comfort food. It reminds me of a time. It reminds me where they are now. I think the industry knows all of this. And I think that when they talk about, Metallica, they're going to be positive because they're in the industry. And I'm talking about, I don't know, I don't want to drop anybody's name. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. And I feel like I might have to answer your question. But as far as where I'm coming from, because that's all I've got is my, to quote James, honesty is my only excuse. I will tell you that I think that anything that they're doing now is probably a decision made between, as far as songs, let's talk about the last few records. More than that, probably the last 5 records. I think Greg Fiddleman has a big say in what's working for Metallica. I think that whoever is in there sitting at the war table when they have meetings at HQ, I think that it's like a board of directors. I think that there are decisions being made that way about what they're doing. It could be, an attorney. I don't know if anybody's therapist is at the meeting, but there very well could be. But I really think that, and I don't know where Metallica is as a brand, as a band, as a touring phenomenon, as a trying new things and all of that. I want to say the genesis of that is Lars talking the other guys into it.
I got a question for one of you guys.
Sure.
Maybe it's Dave. Going back to the tour. Is this the set list we're going to get? Or are we going to get... I just think we're not getting just these 2 set lists. We're going to get... This is a set list A and B, and we're going to get a C, D, E, F, G, and H. No way in hell that the next time they play in Paris, we're getting the same show. You agree? Disagree?
I would disagree. And I say that because I think there's obviously enough songs there for 2 entirely different shows. And here's the other thing. That stage production revolves around this set list or that set list. So you can't just willy-nilly start throwing in set lists. Now, again, it is Metallica, so they could have production for 4 different shows that revolves around 4 different set lists. But I would think even that might be a little ambitious, even for a band as big as Metallica. My point is that, as I think we all know, a band can't just go on tour and decide in the middle of a show one night, hey, somebody's holding up a banner for such and such a song. Let's just whip that one out. Because the whole light show and production and everything and the run time revolves around the set list, the machinery.
I have to disagree because I've been watching that Amsterdam, the 2 nights in Amsterdam. Have you seen the stage?
I have not. So you have an advantage over me. I haven't seen it. So I'm just speaking out of,
it's very, I don't want to say, it's sort of bland. It's simple. And I understand the whole, you just can't have a million songs because different guitars with different keys and, all that jazz. but there's not a lot of lights. It's sort of bare boned.
Okay.
It's massive. There's not much. Take a peek at it if you got time. Go on YouTube in Amsterdam last weekend. And
well, time will tell, right? Because we got let's see, the next show's coming up or in Paris a week from this weekend. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, they could very well be building in some flexibility by keeping the stage production to a minimum by Metallica standards. Yeah, I guess it's possible. A point I wanted to make, and I wanted to go back to something that John asked Jason earlier about what does the industry think and what do the people think and all this thing. At the end of the day, I mean, this is something that's obvious to all of us. Metallica's an easy target. They're so friggin' big that they're going to be divisive one way or another. People are going to love them, or people are just going to want to talk trash about them because they've been around for too long and people are bored with them or whatever. You could say that's a great place to be. If you're that big that people have an opinion about you, you're obviously still relevant. And I think that for me personally, I have not run out and bought the last 4, 5, 6 Metallica records. I'm just not that excited about them as a band anymore. But I will sit here in the same breath and say, you could never get me to say anything bad about them. They were game changers. They stepped up. They made every other band step up.
Amen.
They absolutely changed the landscape. They're still doing it. They do it on their terms. This is a band whose debut album was called Kill 'Em All. This had no recipe for success at all. And they've sustained a massive, massive, massive career out of it. And I applaud them. And if you're that big and you're, sort of like the Banks, too big to fail, you're going to have people that love you for it and you're going to have people that hate you for it. But at the end of the day, they're still out there. They're still doing it. So my hat's off to them.
Well said. What'd you guys take on this Power Trip gig in October?
Well, first off, they shouldn't call it that because fans of the band Power Trip don't really understand why they had to. It's too soon.
It is too soon.
It's too soon is what the kids used to say. That's too soon, man. But
if anyone who's listening isn't aware of the band Power Trip, go look them up. Awesome band out of Texas that is no more, but they were a great, great, great band. Go ahead, Jason. I didn't mean to cut you.
I think these are some of these are the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. This is Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and I don't know. These are the biggest bands that you could have.
The only question I have here is, was there not a 6th band they could have put on here that fit more appropriately with these other 5 bands than Tool?
I think that Tool adds something a little bit different than the old Hesher tailgater rock and roll heavy metal headbanger parking lot bullshit. I think Tool has a little bit of a thinking man's thing going on as opposed to other things.
I think adding Tool was their attempt to sort of bring in a generation of metal fans, hard rock fans that didn't grow up on Let There Be Rock and Killers, Yeah,
at least on that Sunday night right there that Metallica's playing. I think that's a great pairing for Metallica, and Metallica probably chose someone like that, or may have had. It makes sense to me. Just like those other 2 nights, those lineups make sense to me. So Metallica seems to pride themselves in adding something a little bit different, if there is even need for an opener.
Yeah, I agree with Jason. Tool kind of makes sense with Metallica. I just think they have a lot of crossover fan base, and I think it works.
But the question is, was there not a 6th? A Judas Priest? Are they not big enough?
I see what you're saying.
Nothing against Tool, and I get what you guys are saying. Yeah, but it just looks at it's like, yeah, Metallica, DC, GNR, Maiden. I don't know what's going on with Ozzy. That's, whatever. But, was there not another sixth because remember, guys, 5 years ago at this same site, this is the site of Coachella, they had another one of these, but it was like the Stones,
the
Roger.
Who, there was a bunch of
I think Roger Waters, that kind of the big wigs of that kind of scene.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I looked at this and I was like, and Guns N' Roses headlining over Maiden? I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah, I'm not really looking at it like that. I mean, you could say, Ozzy headlining over AC/DC, it still kind of works for me. Either just depends on which way I lean my head, I think.
Yeah.
I think that probably a scheduling conflict on someone else, like a Judas Priest, to use your choice. Exactly. I think Judas Priest would have been a total obvious thing here, even over Tool, and Lars wouldn't have batted an eye at having Priest on the same night with Metallica for sure. But I think probably that's why I'm just guessing. I'm peeing in the wind here because I don't know. Who knows? Nobody knows. But scheduling, because Judas Priest is they're in the wings right now. They might be writing.
Right. They are writing.
Yeah, there's things going on. Ozzy going to show up?
Well, that was you talk about the sixth band. You need a sixth band as a backup just in case.
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
I don't think he was, but I think it's a practical thing. And the other thing I thought of is we don't know about Brian Johnson. Is Guns N' Roses there on the Friday just in case Brian can't do it? Axl walks in on a Saturday and helps him out.
This heavy metal conspiracy now. No, but he's right. Well, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen, but do you don't think somebody thought that through? I damn bet well they did.
I think Brian's going to make it. I mean, they're not on tour.
Right.
Ozzy's not on tour. He can probably waddle up and sorry, Ozzy, and probably do an hour.
Right.
And probably be okay, but he's not really doing great.
No. Yeah. And same with Brian. That's a very valid point. This is probably going to be his one show out of the whole year, and I think he can get up and pull that off. If they were currently out on tour, I'd be concerned that he can show up, but I think he's well rested. We're talking about an hour and a half on stage. He should be able to pull it off, I would think.
Do not be surprised if there's not an AC/DC tour announced later.
Yeah,
on.
you could.
Yeah, I've been waiting because that Power Up record is a really good record, and we're sitting here talking about. I was thinking leading into this conversation today, what bands are out there that have been around for decades that still do arenas, and how many of them have put out what you would consider an essential album in the later half of their career. And honestly, I don't think any of them have. But I will say that the last AC/DC record is a really solid record. Yeah. And I say the last Judas Priest record was really good too.
Firepower was great.
Firepower was fantastic.
That's a really good one too. Are they essential records? Probably not. But when you're talking about bands like that, you're stacking up against Sad Wings of Destiny and British Steel.
Yeah.
And in the case of AC/DC, I mean, just name one. And, so, but I will give them credit for still putting out a great record this late in their career, AC/DC and Judas Priest.
Now, here's a question. Tool or this, whatever they're calling this Pantera thing, opening for Metallica?
On this festival or in general?
No, on this. I'm still hung up on this 6-band angle.
I still think Jason made the most valid point, and that's what went through my head when you asked why not Judas Priest. I think there might be an availability issue. As much as we'd like to think, why don't they just drop everything and be part of this show? The logistics and the commitments and that sort of thing might prohibit somebody from doing it. Because Pantera makes sense now that we know about it, but how long was this in the planning,
Right.
Well, the Ozzy and Priest were supposed to be touring Europe this spring and summer, and it got canceled, and Priest was actually, the album's done, they were supposed to be touring. They just booked this Saxon Priest Uriah Heep track for Europe to gobble up some. So it's the complete 180, Dave. Priest was doing nothing. They were left high and dry because Ozzy had to cancel that tour with them that's been canceled 3 times.
Right. But Priest has also been writing too. So, you know, they've got a new album that's basically done except for vocals last I heard. And the Ozzy Judas Priest pairing was supposed to happen as far as 3 years ago. They had to keep putting it off either because of Ozzy or because of COVID or whatever. At some point, you just have to say, this ain't going to happen and we need to move on. And I think, you know, first of all, we're speculating here that Judas Priest was even part of this conversation. But if they were, I think I go back to Jason, makes a valid point. They could simply have not been available.
Yeah, I'm going to throw something out there back to the regular tour, right? This is an observation I had. You know, the bands are playing every other night, you know, and look at it as like almost like it becomes a destination kind of thing and an opportunity because you had a middle day off. Right now, like for John's going to come down here by me in Jersey. You're going to see the Metalland shows, but Saturday night's wide open. Pantera and Lamb of God are in Camden. Volbeat and Hailstorm are in Atlantic City. King's X is doing a club show in Long Island. It becomes an opportunity for bands to get out there, and you almost be like, wow, all these fans are around. Becomes a whole metal weekend, not just this Friday, Sunday, which I think is cool too.
Yeah, I looked into possibly attending one of these shows in Texas, and the reality of it is for someone like me, I've got a wife and a teenage son, so it's a family of 3, and just going to a gig period will break the bank. And then doing something like this where they have a day off, you can look at all the advantages of a day off, but all I'm seeing is another night in a hotel. You know? So my expenses are going through the roof, and there's a day in the middle when I'm basically paying for meals in a hotel. So I see why Metallica does it, because they have the luxury of taking a day off in between gigs, and who wouldn't want that? I can see families making a vacation out of this, sure. I see what you're saying about it gives you an opportunity if you're another band to sort of slide in and maybe grab some of that audience. But for me, all I'm thinking is, and I might just be cynical and jaded, but all I can think is, oh my God, that's another night in a hotel room and 3 more meals times a family of 3. I'm going to spend an additional $300-400 on that day off in between.
Well, I'm gonna interrupt here and say this is something I was talking about when we first started this meeting here, is that we're talking about the Rolling Stones. I'm sorry, Metallica. Because when you go see the Rolling Stones, there goes your whole paycheck. When you go see whole paycheck. Metallica, whole paycheck. Rolling Stone, whole paycheck. Because it's travel, it's meals, it's rooms.
Right.
You're not going to be gone one night. It's going to you're going to be gone all weekend. You probably have to lose money to go do this, right? I'm talking from a working musician now. So I can't even think about going to the 10 million in attendance in the round at some football stadium or some soccer field. This is old Jason can't do that anymore. Mainly financially. It'll like just break down a wall in my house and it's like a hurricane hit. I can't do it. Also just an opinion that like this Power Trip gig, I wouldn't be caught dead at it. I sound like a bitter old man or anything. Unless I can sit in a lawn chair next to the lead singer's microphone, I ain't going.
Right.
Yeah,
I can't go. I mean, maybe I'm showing my age. Maybe I've been spoiled a little bit. Maybe a little bit of both. Just saying. But I really think that it's completely badass that this is happening. That we are back to normal and full fucking force, and somebody's got disposable fundage to go to these fucking concerts, because I can't afford it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I was going to say earlier when we started looking at this bill and talking about this this concert, this Power Trip Festival. Number one, I can't even begin to think of affording it, and number two, I honestly have no desire to be there, and it's just because I'm old and I need to be comfortable, and I don't want to be away from home for that length of time. Blah blah blah.
Thank you,
Yes,
Dave. I
yes,
can relate.
yes. I'm
entirely.
being the cranky old man here, but I will say this: I'm looking at this lineup. And I'm thinking to myself, 16-year-old me would kill to be at this show. So there is a market for it. It's going to be successful. It's just, I'm past it at this point. I've seen all these bands. They were great. I have great memories of them. I'm not going to the all-day package thing that's in another city and it's going to require 3 nights in a hotel and $200 tickets and $12 beers. Nope, ain't doing it.
I will interrupt again. I will say, I'm sorry, John. It's like this. Metallica's got a new record out. Any of these bands on Power Trip, these other bands, they got new records out?
Not new.
That's pretty rad.
Well,
Metallica is poised and set for greatness this year because of this 72 seasons. There's no doubt. You can't argue with that because none of those other bands I'm looking at right there has a new record out. Right?
New.
Not brand new, no.
As a 16-year-old, let's go around the horn. I saw Metallica in 86. DC I saw in 81. GNR Lies, Maiden 82, Ozzy 82, and I've never seen Tool. So as a 16-year-old Vernomatic, and, I think I saw Metallica for the first, it was, $9.
Yeah.
We all have the same story. It's just,
my reaction to this, and I told Verno, was, I've been to a bunch of European festivals, and I said, where's the rest of the bands? I swear to God, I said that because I said, okay, these are great headliners, but that's 7:30 to 11. What happens from noon to 6? Where's Anthrax and Megadeth and Volbeat and Hailstorm? Like, are we going to fill this bill up? I was fully expecting it to be almost like a European style festival. And that was a downer for me. I'm like, well, if I'm going to go, man, I want to see another 10 bands. I want to do exactly what you don't want to do, Dave. But if we're going to push it, we better really fucking push it. And there better be a reason to push it, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You do raise a good point, though. You look at a bill like this with these kinds of headliners, and, I'm looking at that Sunday night, Metallica with Tool. You sell this thing as a destination, as an event. There's room for 3 bands before Tool comes on, Yeah,
what do you show up at 4? That's not a destination. That's lame. That's country club living, right?
Yeah, but they're not advertising them, so you have to assume that there are no. There might be a.
So it's not a genuine festival, in my opinion.
Yeah,
interesting. Surely there's a bunch of B-level bands playing before Maiden, Ozzy, and Tool.
You would think, but
nothing's been advertised.
If they were names that people recognize, you would think they would advertise them. They might put a lot of local bands on a stage in the parking lot just to have some entertainment out there. But if you were talking bands that could do small theaters or even clubs, and they were names that people recognized, I would think they'd advertise those.
And I think you're right. I think Verno, you're right. When the Who played with the Stones and Roger Waters, I think it was just those bands. It was 2 shows a night, and that was it for 3 days. Probably going to be the same.
Wow. Yeah. So
I'd rather go see Dangerous Toys in Jason's backyard.
There you go. Now that one I would go to.
I think you should book a show in between these Arlington dates. The best of Jason. Get all your bands together and do a festival in your backyard. Vernon and I will come. We will.
I would die after. That's confusing too many people. I've got too many bands, and I would die. It would kill my vocals.
Hey, Jason, how come Dirty Looks wasn't on the M3 this weekend? Didn't you get an offer, man? You guys, I don't know.
We got an offer last year, 2 weeks before the festival. The money wasn't right, and we just basically weren't available. And it was because a band dropped out that we got the call. And that was last year. This year we got to do the cruise, and we just weren't invited to M3.
Were you on the cruise with Wigwam from Norway?
They were on the cruise.
We John and I had a great interview with what was his name? Trond? He was awesome, man.
The guitarist.
What was it? I forget his name, John. What was it?
I think it's Thron, but he has a stage name.
Yeah.
Wiggly or something?
No, it was Teeny.
Teeny.
Teeny. Well, I didn't want to really tell him what in America teeny means. I just said, I guess you're a big guy, huh?
What? Oh, Jason, what was the highlight? What was some of the highlight bands that you saw that you're like, oh, they kicked ass? So, you're happy you saw them.
Rose Tattoo.
Knew he was going to say that first.
Angry Anderson? Is he still angry?
Yeah. Rose Tattoo.
Play any basketball?
Saw Junkyard, Rhino Bucket, a little bit of Kicks, DAD. Yes. But my top would probably be Rose Tattoo. If I had to pick an order, and this doesn't mean any harm to anybody on the list, it would go like this: Rose Tattoo, DAD, Rhino Bucket, Junkyard.
Cool.
That was what I did on the cruise. That was I knew that's what I was going to be doing in my downtime on a boat for 5 days. So, I saw, like I said, I saw a little bit of Kicks. I missed Queensryche, but I saw a couple of great comedy shows.
Tori did comedy, didn't he?
Yeah, Todd Latore from Queensryche did a comedy set. It was pretty good. And Reb Beach from Winger Whitesnake did a comedy set. It was great. And then it was Florentine and Jameson.
Yeah.
And this female comic named Courtney, I can't remember her last name, but really funny shit. Really great.
Is it Courtney Dodd? Was that the...
No, not
I think her
Dodd.
last name is Cronin, like
Cronin Dold.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, hilarious.
Well, before we get out of here, what's going on with how are things at Talk Louder? What do you guys got coming up? Any surprise guests?
Man, things are busy. They're going well. And I think we're just thrilled week after week with some of the guests that we are, agreeing to be on our show. I don't know when this is going to air, but, just in recent memory, we've had Tracy Guns, Mike Tramp, Nigel Glockler. We had Don Jameson. I'm always really pleased with the guests that we're getting. They're names that people recognize, and they're a lot of fun too. So we had Billy White from Watchtower on the show, and that guy is like a bit of a recluse now, but obviously we have connections. Wink, wink. So Jason brought Billy onto the show, and his episode did really well. People were eager to hear what he's been up to and where he's been, because they have a great deal of respect for him and Watchtower in general. So that was a great one. And yeah, the calendar remains full, and we're going to keep going. And Jason and I have always said we'll do it until it's not fun anymore. And it's been 2.5 years, and we're still going. So,
side note: on the way, I drove back from Nashville from Rockin' Pod, and I listened to your interview, the episode with Caton.
Oh,
cool! Yeah,
and I had a chance to interview him a couple years ago, and it was like I was a fly on the wall. That was just a fantastic listen. The enthusiasm just radiates from him, and good for him, because there's a lot of listeners. Caton DePena from Hyrax, and they're working on a new one. Some demos were just released, and
correct.
They're playing a show with the Rods. Believe it or not, some festival I just saw the other day. So, again, the Talk Louder podcast, Jason McMaster, Metal Dave Glessner. Guys, thank you. It was, thanks for taking the time. We're a little over. We're all busy, but Well, we appreciate it. Your insight professionally on both ends. So
thank you for your just being cool and down to earth and inviting us in to be honest and even a little bit emotional, because Metallica and our topic today, they're very close to my heart. Like Dave was saying, they game changer. I jest, and I'm not. You could insert any band you want here, but it made a lot of people want to throw away their Dokken record when Kill 'Em All came out.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
You know what I mean? It's like kids, pimply faced kids were like, oh, I'll never be that cool looking or that pretty or anything. Metallica comes out, and it gave them this is our band.
Yeah.
And so if they had a XYZ record, it made them, I don't want, here, you want this? Give it to their baby sister,
I agree. And here's a little teaser for the Metal Mayhem ROC podcast. We are located up here in Rochester, New York, and Rochester has a special tie to Metallica. So later on this summer, just keep your eyes out. We got something special for you listeners revolving around the Kill 'Em All anniversary.
Wow, nice.
July 25th will be 40 years since that album came out. And guys, it was basically 40 years ago right now. They're about 5 miles down the street from where I sit recording Kill 'Em All.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Game changer, man.
Yep.
The album and the band. So
I think I have a letter from James written on the stationery from that
Music America
studio.
Yeah.
No, it's Garrett Alley, but it's somewhere out there. It says
Barrett Alley is the street.
Yeah, that's it.
And the recording studio was called Music America.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The word on that studio was like, it was like a gutted out room somewhere. It wasn't even like a.
There were
studio.
spirits, bro, ghosts.
Yeah, I don't know. They talk about it.
Cymbals spun on their own.
Yeah,
ours was a little scared to be alone.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll find out more later this summer.
That was all part of it. It sounds great.
Well, I'll let you say goodbye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. It was a lot of fun, man. Good to see you again, Jason. Nice to meet you in person again, Dave. And it's just killer, man. Great time. Hope to get back on again at some point and geek out like we did last time and this time.
Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll pick up another cool topic next time. We'll come up with something else, right?
Sounds
cool.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Give us a holler. Thanks for having us. Enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Great, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Metal for Life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.